Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're getting to a story that goes way, way back, right to the dawn of humanity, really. We're exploring what some researchers call, sort of conceptually, the South Africa gene.
Right. Though it's less a single gene and more about, this incredibly deep genetic history found in the region.
Exactly. It's not just a local story. It feels fundamental, like part of our earliest genetic blueprint. Long before recorded history, kingdoms, agriculture, all of that.
Absolutely. It predates so much of what we consider history.
So our mission today, unpack this amazing genetic diversity in South Africa. Why does it matter so much for human evolution and for medicine today? And crucially, we also need to look at let's say, the complicated ethical side of studying these ancient human legacies.
It's truly fascinating. Scientists have found that some populations in South Africa, specifically the Khoisan peoples, that's the Khoi and the San, or Bushmen, they carry genetic lineages that are estimated to be incredibly old.
How are we talking?
Over 200,000 years old. Yeah. It puts them among the oldest continuous human populations known on Earth.
Oldest continuous population.
Precisely. And just for context, the fossil evidence from South Africa's Cradle of Humankind region.
Right, the famous UNESCO site.
That evidence suggests early Homo sapiens were living there perhaps over 300,000 years ago. So the region itself has this incredibly deep human history.
That antiquity is just staggering. But then there's this other part you mentioned, the diversity, which sounds almost paradoxical.
It does, but it's key. The Khoisan peoples show the highest levels of human genetic diversity found anywhere in the world.
Higher than any other group, even other African populations?
They have other African populations, yes. Which is saying something because Africa itself is the cradle of human genetic diversity.
Okay, help me and help our listeners really picture the scale of that. You told me earlier something quite striking.
Right. So get this. Two unrelated Khoisan individuals can actually have more genetic differences between them than you might find, say, between a person of European descent and a person of East Asian descent.
That's genuinely hard to wrap your head around. More difference within that group than between entire continents sometimes.
Exactly. It really challenges our kind of standard mental map of human genetic variation. It shows the incredible depth within certain African populations.
It's just the average human blueprint is maybe far more varied than we thought.
Precisely. And that the deepest roots of that variation, the oldest branches, are found right there.
So, okay, this huge internal diversity, this ancient genetic library, what does it actually mean for science, for us today?
Well, think of it like an unparalleled encyclopedia. That's a good way to put it.
An encyclopedia of our genes.
Kind of. It contains these ancestral versions of DNA sequences, variants that might have disappeared or become rare elsewhere as populations migrated and adapted differently.
Okay, so it's like finding the original edition.
In a way, yes. And these variations give us crucial clues about deep human adaptation, how our ancestors responded to different climates, how immune systems evolved, and maybe even insights into the development of genes related to things like speech and language, really fundamental human traits.
Can you give us some concrete examples?
Sure. So, in some South African populations, you see specific genetic traits linked to things like lactose tolerance, which emerged in groups that practiced pastoralism, raising cattle.
Makes sense. Adapting to the diet.
Exactly. Or adaptations for survival in very challenging environments, like semi-arid regions, how the body conserves water, perhaps, or deals with heat.
And the medical potential, you mentioned that too.
Oh, absolutely. This is a huge area. Understanding these foundational genetic variations could lead to breakthroughs, maybe new insights into chronic illnesses, things like heart disease, diabetes that affect people globally, and potentially developing more targeted treatments. Because you're looking at the underlying sort of original code in some cases.
The potential seems enormous. A real scientific treasure trove for understanding humanity, maybe even improving health. But as you hinted, there's a history here. And it brings us to some really significant ethical questions, doesn't it? A darker side, perhaps.
Yes, absolutely. We have to acknowledge the historical context. During the apartheid era in South Africa, there's a documented history of biological and anthropological research being done on indigenous groups, sometimes without proper consent.
And often with problematic motivations.
Often, unfortunately, yes, with racist underpinnings or, frankly, exploitative intentions. That past definitely casts a long shadow over current research.
And these concerns aren't just historical footnotes, right? They persist today.
They do. You hear serious warnings now about something called genomic biopiracy.
Biopiracy. Explain that a bit.
It's essentially when researchers, often international, might collect genetic material from indigenous populations, like the Khoisan, and then use that material for research, potentially develop commercial products or gain academic prestige, but without ensuring fair compensation or genuine partnership, or sometimes even proper ethical oversight involving the community itself. Who really benefits? That's the core question.
Right. And wasn't there a specific, quite recent debate that highlighted this tension? Something about reconstructing genomes.
Yes, exactly. There was a proposal, scientifically quite exciting, to use Khoisan DNA to try and reconstruct what very early human genomes might have looked like, a window into the deep past.
Scientifically groundbreaking, you could see that.
No doubt. But many community leaders and ethicists pushed back, arguing really strongly that projects like this must prioritize cultural consent, genuine benefit sharing for the communities involved, and respect for their heritage. It can't just be driven solely by scientific curiosity, detached from the people whose ancestry is being studied.
And just to be clear for everyone listening, in this deep dive, we're laying out these different facets, the science, the history, the ethics, impartially.
Yeah.
We're not taking sides. The aim is to give you the context so you can form your own informed perspective.
That's crucial. These are complex issues with valid points on multiple sides.
Okay, so we've talked about the deep lineages, the incredible internal diversity. Let's zoom out again slightly. How does this South African picture fit into the global landscape of human genetics? You mentioned another comparison earlier.
Ah, yes. This is another one of those facts that really makes you rethink things. Geneticists often say that the continent of Africa, and particularly southern Africa within it, actually contains more human genetic variation within its populations than the entire rest of the world combined.
Wait, say that again. More genetic diversity within Africa than in all of Asia, Europe, the Americas, Oceania put together.
That's the consensus, yes.
Yeah.
It highlights that Africa isn't just one place genetically, it's the source, the homeland, where humanity spent the vast majority of its evolutionary history diversifying.
So the populations outside Africa represent only a subset of that original diversity.
Largely, yes. Migrations out of Africa carried only a fraction of the genetic variation present within the continent at the time. And South Africa, specifically, sits at this amazing crossroads. You have these incredibly ancient hunter-gatherer lineages, like the Khoisan. Then you have the genetic influence from the migrations of Bantu-speaking agriculturalist groups down through Africa, and then much later influences from Asia and Europe.
So it's not just a melting pot. It's like the original source code plus layers of history all in one place.
A very rich tapestry, yes. It encapsulates so much of the human journey.
Which really brings us to some big fundamental questions, doesn't it? Beyond just the science. And these are questions for you listening to think about too. Like, who actually gets to decide how this ancient DNA, this heritage, is studied and used? Is it the scientists, the communities, national governments?
It's a tough one.
And should we think of this genetic heritage primarily as, say, a national resource? Something South Africa, for instance, should protect and control? Or is it fundamentally part of a shared human legacy, something that belongs, in a sense, to everyone?
That's a core tension right there. National heritage versus universal human heritage.
And maybe most importantly, how do we make absolutely sure that the communities whose ancestry, whose DNA, is providing these incredible insights, how do we ensure they actually share equitably in the benefits? Whether those benefits are medical breakthroughs, economic opportunities, or just, knowledge and respect.
That principle of equity and benefit sharing is becoming central to the ethical guidelines, but implementing it effectively is still a major challenge. So yes, summing up what scientists have found in South Africa, it's not just looking backward. This genetic story holds enormous potential, really, to shape the future. The future of medicine, our understanding through anthropology, even how we define ourselves as a species, it's that significant.
It truly is. But it leaves us with that final, maybe unsettling question. Should this incredible genetic treasure be freely shared with the entire world, treated as open-source data for humanity? Or do they need to be carefully guarded, protected as a unique cultural and national heritage by the communities and the nation it belongs to? There's no easy answer there. We genuinely love to hear your thoughts on this because it feels like a debate that involves all of us.